it didn't matter.
All right, well, we're going to get started. Hi, everyone. I'm Don Saucier. I'm the Faculty Associate Director of the Teaching and Learning Center. You have found your way to our professional development series, and we are so glad that you're here. Every Wednesday, 12 noon, same Zoom link. We're happy to see you, and we've got events all semester. And if you're watching asynchronously, because we record all of these, and you can check out the recordings in the TLC website, then thank you for coming in the future. That is awesome. Let you know what's coming up before we talk about the one we go now. First of all, next week, we have a need to know event called Microaggressions and Cultural Competence. Rebecca Paz, Graciela Berriman, and Karina Moncayo Michelle will be presenting next week. We're really excited to have them share their thoughts next week. This week, we have an amazing speaker. We have Eva Horne. We've tried to get Eva a couple semesters. It's never kind of worked, but this semester, we've got Dr. Horne, and we are so excited to have Dr. Horne share with us the principles of biology from studio to online. Dr. Horne, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me. It's been a busy several weeks here, or several semesters, I guess. And I have to warn you, I'm not the best Zoom speaker, so if I get too carried away and start babbling or something, feel free to rein me in or pop in and ask a question if you're not sure what I'm talking about. So what I was going to do today, one of the things we've heard from students in the past is that there are all these rumors going around that half the class fails and all this kind of thing, and students don't do well in studio, and they need lectures and that sort of thing. So what I was hoping to do is sort of bring everybody together on the same page and talk a little bit about principles. So I'm going to give you a brief history of how we got started with studio biology and in the division of biology. And kind of the current status, what we're doing now, things that we're changing to, and some of the challenges of moving this class online, which was enormous. And then some examples of some of the interactive computer material that we've created both for the in-person classes and the online classes, and how we use that interactive computer material to generate labs and lab activities. And then some examples, if there's time, some examples from my upper level course, behavioral ecology, where I use interactive computer materials as sort of games that they can play and collect data from. And then I ask them questions about those data that they gather from those games in my class. So sort of incorporating real interactive computer material into a lecture class. So principles of biology, for those of you who haven't been here forever. When I first came in 1991 as a graduate student, this is what the classroom looked like, and it was something called an audio tutorial, which when they started doing it was cutting edge. And it was set up, the room was set up with these little individual booths that students came in and sat down. They could come in anytime during the week they wanted. They would sit down and listen to a lecture and do labs all on their own. And faculty would circulate around in the room, answering questions and helping students. TAs were also in the rooms helping students. And then there was once a week, the students would meet with a recitation, a faculty member in a recitation. The assessments for this were weekly lab reports, which were random questions out of those lab reports were chosen to be graded each semester. So it was a different set of those each semester. That was really interesting. Sometimes we would stop doing a lab, and 2 years later, somebody would turn that in. So I think some people were not ever coming to class and were copying anyway. And then we had multiple choice exams for each module, and there were 7 modules then, the same as there is now. Then in 96, 97, that room got renovated to what it is now. So this is Ackert 219 right now. And we have all these different workstations where we can have students work in groups and do peer learning from each other, which is a very important part of studio. And they can work in groups of 4 or in groups of 2. There is a computer for every 2 students. And this room can hold 78 students currently, with 2 faculty members most of the time. Sometimes it's 1, up to 2 GTAs and up to 2 undergraduate practicum student teachers. So We have a lot of help available to these students in the class. Just to give you an idea of what our student body looks like, these are data that we got from the main data set on campus. So we have data from back from 2008 to now. So this is 28 semesters worth of majors in the class. And over that time, the majority of those students that take our class have been arts and sciences, with ag being the College of Ag being a big second. And then these are other colleges that have students who take our class. In recent years, these two are reversing. We now have actually a greater percentage of students from the College of Ag than we do from arts and sciences. And this is an amazing data set. It's like 14,000 plus students. If we look at academic level, the greatest majority of our students are freshmen, more than 50%, and then a pretty high percentage of sophomores as well. So the class, as it's taught now, is broken up into 7 modules. And each module is 2 weeks. So there's 2 classes per week in each module, and an exam after each one of these modules as you go through. And then the last one is 3 weeks with 6 classes. If you look at our class, so the studio is set up, we've got a manual, a studio manual, and it is a notebook where students work through material. They're actively working through material and answering questions in that manual. So this is the first page of one of the classes. There are objectives defined for each class. There are assignments for the students to do before they come to class. And that's the pre-class readings. We have an e-text, so the only thing they buy is the manual, and they buy that from our graduate students, so the price is fairly low. And they should do those readings before they come to class. During class, which is 2 hours twice a week, there is a 10 to 15-minute introduction by one of the staff, either the faculty member or one of the grad students. Occasionally, the undergraduate practicums will present one of these if they want to. It gives them great experience. And then they spend the bulk of their time working through material in the manual. So it's all tied with the manual. They go through, they answer questions, they do wet lab activities sometimes they're working on the computer and answering questions about the material in their manual. And this is something that lets them slow down their thought processes and think about things as they're working through the material, instead of just listening and maybe spacing it off. The instructors move through the classroom during this time, and they check student answers, make sure they're on the right track. They answer questions that students have, and generally help them work through the material. Then at the end of the class, there's about a 10 to 15-minute wrap up where we try to tie together things that they did in class, and make it more applied. And what did you learn from these experiments? And what did you learn from what you did in class today? The assessments they have a short online pre-class quiz over the reading that they supposedly did. It's 4 or 5 questions, and it's multiple choice. This last semester, we've started something new. We have a capstone quiz, which is they watch a little video over some material that may be difficult, that we know has been difficult in the past for students. And then they get exam-like questions on that. So hopefully that prepares them for the exam. And the first time we did this last semester, 83% of the students said that it helped them prepare for the exam. So that is something we're going to keep. It also gives them a little bit of a buffer. The exam now is worth fewer points, and so it gives them a little bit of a buffer for the exam. And so there's one of those in each module, so there's 7 of those. And then for the exam, again, it's still multiple choice, and it's over each module. If you look at grades over that long time period that we have for 29 different semesters, this is the percentage of the different grades. And we still have more D's, F's, and W's than we would like. But 51% of the students over that time have made an A or a B in the class. So it seems to be doing fairly well. And then if you look at it over time, so this is down here every semester over many years, and looking at just the percentage of A's, we've actually had a slight increase as we've gone through time in the percentage of A's in the class. And the F's have stayed about the same percentage or possibly started going down just a little bit. This was before COVID, and after COVID, everything kind of got scrambled up a little bit. So we're going to be working to bring that percentage of A's back up and the F's back down now. Something else we did with these data was do some preliminary analysis, doing a stepwise regression for factors that could be correlated with grades. And we were looking at how taking 198 here affected their grade in upper level classes that required 198 as a prerequisite. And so these two classes are biology classes. This is microbiology and genetics. Or no, actually, this is genetics and this is microbiology. And the grade in biology 198 was positively correlated and explained most of the variation in the grade in those two classes. Then we had first generation student ACT comp scores. Ethnicity, the yellow is actually a negative effect. So ethnicity, some of the ethnic groups actually did worse in the upper level classes. And then transfer source, there were a lot of different categories of this. This particular one, if it's white, shows that some of those had a positive effect and some had a negative effect. In microbiology, again, principles of biology was high. The transfer source was negative. And in this case, and in almost every case where it's negative, it was students transferring biology from a community college, did worse in upper level classes. For some other colleges, this is animal sciences genetics class. And again, biology 198 came out on top. Also in kinesiology's anatomy and physiology class, and in human nutrition, that class also, biology 198 helps explain the variation in the grade and is the greatest contributor to success in that class. The grades are correlating. So it looks like just from these preliminary data that taking principles of biology here at K-State prepares the students better for upper level classes. And I know that animal sciences has done some studies on this over there, and they've also seen that same result. For going online, we ended up changing the format. And I will say here, thank you very much to Deborah Goins for helping design our Canvas site. This is an example of one of the weeks and how it looks when the students sign in for Canvas. There's a little tab here that has the objectives for the week. There's a little short video telling them what the week's going to be about. And then there's a task list at the bottom for the things that they have to do. We have these sort of repeat of short lessons where they do a reading. So there would be a reading on proteins here. Then one of these interactive computer lessons or tutorials about proteins. Then readings for membranes, a lesson about membranes, reading on the cell cycle, and a lesson about cell cycle. And every week is set up this way with these short reading lesson assignments. Then there's also every week a multiple choice quiz, and there is a discussion post every week with a video and a short answer question that they have to complete. For the unit assessments, there is a capstone activity, and in this case, it's something called a case study, where it's a more complicated application of the material, and each one has 4 or 5 short answer questions that the students have to complete. And then there is a multiple choice exam for each unit, and we do this as a timed exam. They have a set amount of time, and the questions are locked after they finish each question. so they can't go back. We split the topics up and reorganized things a little bit. Everything is the same material that we cover. It's just reorganized in a different schedule, and it's reorganized by week. And there's also only 6 units in the online material as opposed to 7 in the in-person. When we look at the academic levels of the students, the first 2 semesters, we've taught this online for 4 semesters now. The first 2 semesters were largely juniors and seniors. These last 2 semesters, that's been leveling out. And so I'm wondering if it's going to completely switch over to freshmen again once all the seniors sort of get out of the system. Majors changed a lot. So far, we've limited the online class to only those students enrolled in global campus curriculums. And so mostly this is animal sciences and dietetics programs from HHS and the College of Agriculture. Our grades are not as good, and we're trying to figure out ways to help students more with the grades in the online class. But this particular distribution was highly affected by last semester. For some reason, I had at least 12 students who just stopped turning stuff in partway through the semester. And so we ended up with a higher percentage of Fs last semester than we've had in any of the other semesters. I'm not sure what happened that semester, but it's also something we noticed in the in-person sections. And I've talked to other students, other instructors who say they've seen that in other classes too from last semester. So I'm not sure what that was about. Some of the things we're looking at for the future is one of the problems we've had with going online. In the beginning, we talked about short answers being a better way to discourage cheating because students had to write things out. But we found that they would copy our questions and paste them into websites like Chegg, and then copy answers back and paste them back into our material for their answers. And I've turned multiple students in every semester for doing that sort of thing. So I'm trying to work out ways. I've actually got an honor and integrity activity now that they have to work through at the beginning of the semester before they even start, to hopefully steer them away from that kind of thing. And so we're still working on that, and may end up having to do more timed quizzes, though students don't do as well on that. So yeah, anyway, so that's, if anybody has suggestions for how to deal with that, and especially now that we have these chatbots and AIs that can complete assignments for them, I would be really interested in ways to help with that. I'm also thinking about adding audio, or I am going to add audio to the lesson. Right now it's all reading. And so I'm going to record audio to go with those so that if students want to listen to it, they can. And I've noticed that when I talk to students who meet with me, they have a lot of trouble pronouncing the scientific terms. And so if I add audio to it, that should help with some of that sort of thing. And I want to add more interactive questions to all of the lessons. And to give you an example of some of those lessons, I've got some things queued up here. I remember how to share again. So this first bit is just a few of the activities that are exclusive to the online material. We don't use these. We used them during the pandemic in the in-person class, but we don't use them now. These are replacements for lab activities. So we have a virtual microscope. So we have a slide and they can come in and dial the magnification. Take a look at things under the microscope. And we can add things to it. So for this one, when they zoom in, go all the way up to 400x, there's a question. Click on a cell in metaphase to see labels identifying other phases. So this is phases of mitosis, for those of you who are not familiar with it. And here's a metaphase, so you can click on that. and it labels the variety of things. So you can add questions into these lab activities like this. For the chemical experiments where they have to do things with test tubes in class, in person, I photographed test tubes. And so here they click on each tube. So they've added active amylase, they've added starch. They're looking at the breakdown of starch in these test tubes. And so they click on each test tube to add the next reagent that's going to break or going to tell you whether that process happened or not. And then they click on the flame to heat it and they see their result. And this is followed by what did they learn? What do the results mean? So a discussion of that. And in the in-person class, this is something they would answer in their manual, and instructors would come around and talk to the students and help them work through those questions. They can also make mistakes when they're doing test tube works in class. So I've actually programmed that in. If they click on the flame first, they get an error and they have to go back and follow the directions to do all of the steps correctly. And then a discussion of the results, a question, and then an answer to that question. So lots of different ways that you can do this, and we have multiple different things involved in it. We also have experiments where they can measure things. So this is one where they're looking at diffusion into an agar cube. And this is the measurement, the amount of that diffusion after 1 minute, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 8 minutes, further. And then on the next one, to learn about how to graph things. And when they're in person, they would be doing this in their notebook. But here they can move these things over and graph. Experiment. And draw a line. Then we can add more questions, ask them about a variety of different things. We can add animations. This one is replication of DNA. So there's a helicase molecule splitting the DNA apart. There's a polymerase coming in and adding nucleotides, and they're adding it in both directions. There's a ligase that's putting things together. So they can see the whole process. And when they do this in the class, they actually have it broken down into steps where it does one step at a time. And then this is the final putting everything together sort of thing. With questions afterwards. So which enzyme splits the molecules apart? And they can put that in and submit. Go to the next. This is another kind of interactive animation that we've made that shows how hormones can regulate sugar levels in the blood. So this is normal blood flow with red blood cells and sugar molecules floating through it. If you go to low sugar, it takes out some of the sugar molecules and tells you the steps that happen when that happens. Actually, it shouldn't take out all of there's one. Okay. So what are the steps that get more sugar and raise sugar levels back up? You can go to high sugar and you have a lot more sugar molecules in the blood. What happens when that increases? The pancreas sends out insulin, it affects these other sites, and sugar gets withdrawn from the blood. So you can do these animations that you can also add in interactive components to, and you can even add in questions for things that are happening. You can embed videos in these, and we have a number of places where videos are embedded, and especially in the online, since we can't do some of these experiments in the classroom. In the classroom, we actually have live demos of this type of plant. We can also give them sort of review activities, things to work through. This is a genetics activity where students can do crosses of butterflies and try to figure out the genotypes of these different ones. So they can cross a female with a male, make the cross, it gives them the offspring, and then they can look and see, okay, was it incomplete dominance? Was it codominance? What's going on here? And these white spots are also one, and you can take the offspring back, cross them, and see what the results are. And then there are questions, once they've sorted out those genotypes, they can come here and answer what they actually are. And I wonder if I remember what they are. Nope. I think it's this one. There. So there's a series of questions that come after they have sorted out and have worked through the material. We also have things that can give them a review of the cell. So you can go here, and here are all the different things found in cells. And every time they roll their mouse over one of these, it gives them an explanation for what it is, and then they can add it to the cell if they think it belongs there. And once they've added everything in that they think belongs to the cell, they can click on submit and see whether they're right or not. And that is wrong. Let's do, oh, it won't let me do a different cell. These actually pretty much have everything. So once they complete, it gives them all the things that are found within that type of cell. And they can do this for all the different kinds of cells. A more recent activity we've worked on, this is one we had been doing, Simutex. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that. It's a commercial version of labs that we used to do. And there was a moose and wolf Isle Royale activity that we did in class. And that has is becoming more and more expensive and more difficult to deal with. So we've actually recreated something like that and made our own. So this one is working on frogs and snakes. And so there's some introductory material about where the animals live and what happens to them, and a description of a model that we're using to look at population growth. And they will be going through mostly graphs of data. And so here are the frog population growth to see what happens over 100 years. And then they have questions. So what type of growth is this? And it's logistic. And the carrying capacity. I should make you answer. What's the carrying capacity, somebody? Anybody listening? Nobody knows.
About 400.
About 400, right. So, and then this one is a prediction. So if we start over at time 0 and add 200 frogs at year 40, what's going to happen? And for this one, they can answer either one of these. And it says, that's a good hypothesis. Now see what happens. And they go to the next slide and click, and we see the 200 frogs added and what happens to the population. And then there's questions about that. So what happened? And they answer the question, which apparently I can't do on the fly while I'm trying to talk. And this works all the way through. We add in the snakes, and you see changes in the population growth. There are similar questions about that. We also look at energy levels and reproduction in the frogs. So here they look at how many eggs the frogs produce based on a population that has no predator, and they can add these to the chart over here. Oop, that's a male, doesn't have eggs. And when they do 10 of them, they can calculate the mean and take a look at that. Then they look at the population with snakes, and they do the same thing. Calculate the mean. And then there's a comparison of those means and a question about what is happening. And we also have climate effects built in. So what happens if it becomes too warm? What happens if it becomes too cold? And they can make predictions on this and then answer their questions by clicking on graphs. And this one is more like what I want to make all our material, where there's interactive things going on, and then there's questions embedded more frequently in there than we have had in the past. And then I'm going through things a lot faster than I thought. So for my upper level class, I have a couple of games. And so this is one in which they're looking at communication between two different animals and whether they know how much information they know about that other animal is going to determine their tactics. So here we have a praying mantis, and this is you. This is the person using it. Here's their opponent. So you have to decide based on what you can see about them and what's communicated here, whether you're going to fight them or run away. And in this one, 50% of the time you will win, 50% of the time you will lose. So do you want to fight or run away? Somebody.
Run away.
I want to fight.
Well, if you run away, you get nothing. If you fight, you get a 50% chance of winning. And you won that round, so you got a net gain of 80. You fight again. Won again, so this goes up. And so it's a coin toss. 50% of the time you win, 50% of the time you lose. In game 2, you have more information. So in this one, sometimes you can tell whether they're smaller than you are or not. And if you're the bigger individual, you always win. So since you're the bigger individual, do you want to fight or run away?
Fight.
Fight.
Gotta fight.
Okay, so you always win in that case. Sometimes you can't tell, and you're back to the 50-50 again. So what do you want to do? Fight or flee?
Fight.
Right.
John, you're always going to say fight.
I'm up for a fight. We're always.
You lost
Oh.
that time. And
Sarah
then
distracted me.
sometimes you can tell that the other individual is bigger than you are. So now what are you going to do? Fight or flee?
I guess we'll run away this time. That's what Sarah wants.
Okay. So they work through that one. And then in this third game, you have more information. So that one's smaller. So you can fight that one because you know you're going to win.
Wait, what was flaunting?
I will get to that here in a minute. This one's bigger. So flaunting is displaying. You're going to display. And you can do that with one that you know the information about, but it costs a little bit if you do flaunting. So since you know this one is bigger, do you want to waste some energy displaying? Or do you want to just run away? Or do you want to fight?
I want to see what happens if we flaunt.
Okay.
That's hilarious.
What's that?
I said that was hilarious.
So now you're still smaller than that one. Are you going to fight or flee?
I think we got to fight because we just look awesome there.
Okay.
Oh,
They were bigger than you are. You're gonna lose. That one's smaller. The flaunt is most helpful if you don't know what the other one is, and it's random, so I have to keep going. So this one's the same size as you are, right? So you don't want to run away until you know for sure that they're bigger, right? So then you do the flaunt, and now you can actually tell whether they're bigger or smaller than you are, and fight. So the goal of this whole thing is to get the students to think about the more information you gain, the better decision you can make. And the questions that I have them answer in Canvas are related to that. And I actually have another one that is similar. This is a board game. And in this one, you can pick your opponent. I don't remember which one. Let's do this one. So Crookshanks is moving first, and he's moving toward your goal. This is your goal, and your goal is to get that thing here. Crookshanks' goal is to get that thing over here and to get the most points that you possibly can. So if Crookshanks move toward you, what is your next logical move?
you go
You're trying
left,
to get
right?
it here, to go toward yours, right? And so Crookshanks let you win. So now it's your turn. What are you going to do first?
Go to the right.
Go toward, give it to Crookshanks?
Wouldn't we still go left?
Well,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is your goal.
Yeah.
This is your opponent's goal. So you're
Okay,
going to go here.
Yeah.
Why did they go left first?
Crookshanks a cat and is just messing with you, man.
Oh, okay. It's like there's got to be a
Well-
trick there somewhere.
He didn't like that you moved left that time, so he took it back. Now what are you going to do?
Left again, right?
What if you move it diagonally? Oh, can you only go in a straight line?
You can only go in a straight line, but you could go up here or down here.
Well, let's go up. Oh,
So why would you do anything but left?
So is this cooperation or defecting?
Yes. Yes.
So game theory.
Game theory. This is game theory. This particular one. So let's go back here. This one, Hedwig will do anything for you. So Hedwig will go your way regardless, and will let you win every time. And it's interesting, if you actually move it their direction the first time, they will actually, sorry, my phone's going off. They will actually play tit for tat, which is you can actually let them win if you move it to their side first. But most students move it straight to their side and they never even try the other way. Trevor is the opposite. Trevor always moves toward Trevor's goal, never in the other direction. So you can never get any points from Trevor. And if the idea is to come out with the most benefit for the least cost, what should your strategy be?
let Trevor win.
Let Trevor win, because that's going to give you the least cost. And it's funny how few of the students ever do that. Most of them consistently will spend 10 rounds going back and forth toward their goal and just sit here and go back and forth. Crookshanks is a tit for tat. So as long as that Crookshanks will go with whatever you decide on the first round, or if it's their turn first, they will let you win the first one. But if you don't give back to them the next round, then they become like Trevor and they just keep fighting you. So these are some games that I've done in the upper level class, and then set those up with questions for the students to answer. So that was a lot shorter than I thought it would be. I talked really fast. Questions?
So I think it was asked earlier, but this program is that special program that you incorporate your, like with PowerPoint, it links up with PowerPoint and then you can put all these together.
You can pull in PowerPoint. It's called Articulite Storyline. It is based on PowerPoint. So if you know how to use PowerPoint, it's really easy to use this software. And you can actually import PowerPoint slides into it and then add animations to them, add questions to them. You can create question banks. There's all kinds of different things you can incorporate. There's drag and drop questions. There's short answer question. There's fill in the blank questions. There's all kinds of, there's moving stuff around in order kinds of questions. So you can come up with all different kinds of ways you can embed questions in the material as you work through it. And then it's also got something similar to what the old Flash used to have, where down at the bottom, there's a timeline and you can create animations.
Yeah.
And have things appear and disappear. And you've got animations the same as you have in PowerPoint, but you can also do stop action by having things like that the DNA molecule was a stop action, where I had all these different images in there and they each show up at a particular time. So it's a fantastic, very versatile piece of software. We have a license right now that we can use forever, and it does it in HTML5. So you can access the material in any device. So the output's in HTML5. And I have students who do stuff on their phone with it. It's, any device it works on. Unfortunately, they're going to a subscription thing now. So they kept Storyline 3 as a license up until just now. The last update for that is going to be coming up soon. And so after that, they won't be updating it anymore. And eventually we'll run into a problem where it won't work with Windows and we'll have to go to their subscription. But their subscription version also has some really nice stuff in it. And I know Deborah Goins has been using it. And you can actually use it to do more web design type. It's got different formats, and you can have versions like this, or you can have it look more like a regular website kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be good. Also, so I was trying to rationalize it because I don't have a teaching budget. I only have research grants. So I was thinking over since you told me about it last summer, I was thinking like, how can I do that? But one of the main goals of all my research is it has to be, dissemination of material that people actually, and I think that's a really excellent way. If it's on a website, you're like, here's what's going on, and then have as you're trying to educate the public or educate other scientists.
And I actually have, let's see, get my bookmarks back so I can find things. Arg. I have a website for principals. Huh. What happened to my website? My bookmarks. Do I need view? You are. Okay, let me share this. So I've actually done some of these genetics problems that I have embedded in the class material. And I put them on here. So this is that build a cell activity that I had. And then I have all these genetics problems that are practice problems that students can work through. And they have answers. So like if you put in the wrong thing, it tells you that it's wrong. But it also gives hints. So you can work through a series of questions that will help you answer that question you just did. And there's all these different problems in here. And I've had people contact me from high schools and community colleges and places like that who have used this material and said that it's great, and they love, their students love being able to do that.
So does
And
your,
that, I'm sorry.
your website would track, is your department able to do that? Like track, somehow track activity? And so that way you can actually have that as an impact factor on your CV and evaluations. That would be really cool.
Yes, and I would love to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Currently, I don't think the department does it, but you can embed things like for Google tracking into these things. You just have to add it after you've published, and you have to go in and do the HTML code for having like Google Analytics track it. And it's not something I've tried on all of these, but I would like to do it on this one because it would be really interesting to see how many people actually use this, besides just people occasionally emailing me and saying, hey, we love this activity.
So you have public biology, ksu.edu. So you have your own direct access to this site, your department grants that?
Yeah, I actually have a server set up. And actually, if you're interested, if any of you want to come in and just look at all of the lessons,
Yeah.
and add this to the chat. You're welcome to come here and take a look at them. And if you're interested in the behavior ones, those are there. Though some of these are lecture notes. I post my lecture notes in this too, because I can embed videos and things like that in it really easily, and make it interactive. And then these are the games that we use in class. So, and one of the things about this online material, we don't have a manual. So I have a lot more interpretation of the activities and things. Most of these same things, except for lab experiments, like doing the wet lab chemistry experiments and things like that. Most of these are the same lessons they get in the in-person class, just organized differently and with more questions and explanations embedded in the material as opposed to being in the manual.
Nathan has his hand up for a question or a comment.
Yeah. Hey, Eva, thanks for the presentation. Very helpful. And looks like you've done a lot of great stuff there. I'm curious, you had this, you've got it all designed into different weeks, right? When you went online, I can see that would be helpful for students who are trying to paste things and stuff online. How important do you think that is? Because sometimes, I've thought about doing some of this, putting some stuff online for one of my classes, and some of the things don't necessarily fit. A unit might be less than 3 days worth of material, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it's pretty important, or I guess, can you comment on that? How important is it to really have it in those week chunks, or can you just do it by unit, and you might have 12 units and you don't have 12 weeks, but you're going to have to, progress through them,
Yeah, I mean, the advantage to the weekly thing is that it gives them the same day every week that assignments are due. So the homework is, the quiz is due on Friday night, the discussion is due on Saturday night, you know, that kind of thing. I don't know that it's entirely necessary. I haven't tried it in any other way, though I am going to put this online this summer for the first time. So it's going to be offered this summer. And since that's only 8 weeks as opposed to 15 weeks, I'm going to be doing some of those oddball week times. So I can let you know after this summer how well it works to do it that way. But yeah, I think you could probably still do it and have different sized units as long as you keep up with and remind students, okay, you've got something coming up that's due. And I have to do that even every week. I send out a reminder every Friday. Your quiz is due tonight to the people who haven't done it yet.
I have mine broken up in modules and they're not even. So yeah, I do exactly that. I have announcements, I add to the calendar. Yes. And then those straggler students, you have freshmen, I have seniors that are just not super fantastic at keeping up with school. And I do the same thing. I mean, you go in Canvas, you look at your grades, people who haven't done it, you just give them lots of reminders. And yeah. So far in the past 3 years, I've only had one student and they just completely shut down on me and get an F in the class. So I've had a couple Ds because they just couldn't function that year. And your comment about last semester, it seems like it's campus wide. The students just are in shutdown mode or something is going on where they're not happy about anything fun. Like literally bringing them out to the farms and having them in front of animals and they're just complaining. And I was just a little taken aback. That was one of the weirdest semesters like in my 10 years at K-State. So
yeah, I had 2 students who did the honor and integrity activity the very first thing and then never turned in anything after that for the whole semester. So I don't know, but yeah, I think with the online, it seems like you spend a lot of time reminding students to do things. Because I actually looked, our first discussion post in this class is, who are you? Introduce yourself, you know, tell us something about yourself, you know, and it's open, they can share whatever they want. But I had 29 students who said where they lived, and I had 15 different states in 3 countries. And I have students who were in an Austin ice storm and had their electricity out. And I've had students in hurricanes, and I've had students, you know, so there's a lot of different things going on in their lives, and they've had to move in an emergency and they get assigned. I have multiple military people who get assigned to another fort for 2 weeks and they get all behind and things like that. So it's a lot of juggling their schedules and trying to keep up with everybody and what they're doing. So
you, I guess back to the online 198, do you see that you'll be offering that to students who are enrolled here on campus? Is that something that you're planning on doing? Are you going to eventually get rid of the studio one and it's all online? What are the long-term plans? No. We're keeping it in the spring and fall. It's only offered to global campus students. And any student who can come to campus, we still require they come to campus. For the summer, I'm going to offer it to anybody. We're not offering the in-person in the summer this year. So it'll be open to anybody in the summer. But just with the global campus students, I had 100 students the first semester. I had the first fall, I had 50 the next spring, I had 80 the following fall, and 50 the spring after that. And with the amount of grading that we do, that's not something I want to go up. So why not have students on campus? I mean, is it more work for somebody that's online? Is it than to have somebody do it on campus? Because it seems like you've got a lot of faculty already involved in the on-campus one.
Yes, but that doesn't include the grading. The online has a lot more hand graded assignments. as opposed to the multiple choice and the Canvas graded assignments. So for in-person, the faculty have to come in and teach the class, but they're not actually responsible for the exams. The coordinator writes those. And those are graded with the computer. But we have, we still have upwards of 300 to 500 students a semester in that class, even with low enrollment. So there's no way we could do that sort of hand grading multiple different assignments every week. There are more assignments in the online material than there is in person. So it would be really hard to make it completely online.
Do you think that's necessary to have those additional assignments online? And is the more grading, is that to try and get around the cheating and things like that would be difficult, or that is, I guess, seems like the cheating issue would be a hard thing to get rid of in the online, and it's easier to control that. I guess maybe I'll say that it's probably easier to control cheating in a classroom environment. Yes, absolutely. And one of the reasons we added extra assignments to the online is because we did not use proctors. For one thing, I think proctors are creepy, having somebody watch you out of your computer while you're taking a test. And when we first started doing this, it actually cost the students extra to do the proctor. Now it's the division pays for the proctor. But we started out making it so there would be no proctor. And so the exams are timed. They have a minute and a half per question, and they can't go back. Once they answer a question, they're done with it. And that makes the exams harder for a lot of these students, that they can't go back and look over it again. And trying to deal with the timing and things like that. And so we added extra assignments to the online to sort of help buffer that change in the exams, if that makes sense.
So we are about out of time. Dr. Horne, is there a kind of a concluding comment that you'd like to make?
Going to online was a lot more complicated than I expected it to be. And especially trying to, and for different reasons than I expected as well. So. And
it seems like you did it with grace and creativity, and we really appreciate you sharing that with us. Please join me in thanking Dr. Horne for a wonderful presentation today. Really fun. And if you're playing the Mantis game, always fight. That's what I learned today. That's what I'm taking away. Dropped a post-event survey into the chat if anyone would like to provide some feedback on this. I'll also remind you have the opportunity to become a TLC Professional Development Certificate earner or a fellow. All of that information is available on our website and in an earlier link we had put into the chat. And I'll also remind you that next week, Wednesday at noon, we'll have a presentation on microaggressions and cultural competence from our colleagues Rebecca Paz, Graciela Berriman, and Karina Moncayo Michelle. So we're very excited. But one more time, thank you so much, Dr. Horne, for being with us today. And thank you to the rest of you for making some time on your Wednesday to talk about teaching with us. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.